Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fans, today hit different for anyone who bleeds purple and gold. There is a major front office decision happening behind closed doors. An important piece of the offense working back from a physical issue. An opponent that suddenly has to tweak its game plan. A coaching staff opening up about this rough stretch, and people already pointing at big mistakes from upstairs. And at the very end of it all, there is a move that hits a franchise icon and Vikings Nation right in the gut. Now, before we dive into all these stories, let me set something up with you. If you truly live and breathe Vikings football, hit that subscribe button. It is free and it helps a ton to keep bringing content to this fan base. Smash the like button because this space belongs to Vikings Nation as a whole. And the comments are where you drop your take, agree, push back, and get your voice in the mix. Let's get into it. Man, this quarterback decision that just dropped hits hard for anyone who truly lives and breathes Vikings football. The team announced that the recent gamble to round out the quarterback room, Desmond Ridder, is done. They cut him from the practice squad to clear space. All of this because the return of the starter from the concussion protocol is right around the corner, and that changes the energy of the entire week. The message is clear. If your starter is back, there is no room for a half-baked experiment taking up a chair. They already have a veteran who can hold it down. They already have the rookie who got thrown in on short notice, so somebody was going to be the odd man out. It landed on the most recent addition, who barely had time to build trust with anybody. Harsh? For sure. But that is the cold reality of the National Football League, and that is where it really hits this fan base in purple and gold. JJ coming back from the protocol is not just returning to play. He is coming back to prove he can be the guy, the one who can run this offense, take care of the football, and show real growth. Because, let us be honest, so far he has lived much more on hope than on production. To be straight with you, there is no way to keep calling this just a project when the season has gone off the rails like this. His numbers are rough, his reads are slow, and that sharp timing with the receivers just has not shown up. When a former player like Patrick Peterson, who knows that locker room, is talking about balls hitting the dirt and deep shots sailing long, it means the hole is pretty deep. He sees a stuck offense and knows it is not a coincidence. The wild part is seeing TV analysts already projecting heavy competition coming in next year. They are talking about a veteran to fight for the job. They are talking about a well-known name in the league and moves from the front office to keep Justin Jefferson calm about who is throwing him the ball. Imagine the pressure on the kid's mind hearing Daniel on one side, Mac on the other, with everyone tossing those names out as the plan B. It is exactly that vibe of play well now or someone is taking your spot. And this kind of situation always splits opinion among Vikings fans everywhere. There is a group that wants maximum patience, wants to let the kid take his lumps, learn, and come back stronger. And there is the group that looks at the repeated mistakes and turnovers, sees the frustrated face of the star wideout on the sideline and says, "Enough, we need someone ready yesterday." Tell me in the comments which side of that table you are on. What we can say for sure is that cutting the last quarterback in line is just the tip of the iceberg. What really matters is what J.I.J. is going to show in these next games, with his job being debated on TV shows and in hot backroom conversations. Stick with me all the way to the final story, because that one really shows how this cloud of uncertainty hits the biggest icons around here. Look, this story directly affects how the next opponent looks at the Vikings. The confirmation that J.J. McCarthy is expected back against Washington flips the entire focus of their plan. Instead of facing a completely raw rookie who just threw 4 interceptions, they are now preparing for a starting quarterback who is still extremely inconsistent. For that defense, that is almost an open invitation to stress test him for an entire game. On the other sideline, the defensive coordinator is probably licking his chops. He is watching recent tape of the Vikings offense. He sees open routes with late throws and balls sailing high. He sees slow reads and protection breaking down early. Then he adds in JJ's ugly season numbers. Low completion rate, a passer rating buried down the charts, way too many picks. You do not need to be a genius to know they will bring heavy blitzes, disguised coverages, and plenty of pressure on third down. The thing is, Washington is far from a perfect defense. They have given up a lot of points, have holes on the back end, and have allowed big plays at crucial moments more than once. But when you line up an up-and-down unit against a quarterback who has not proved himself yet, the pattern is obvious. They are going to load the box, dare him to win through the air, and wait for a mistake. And honestly, on the Vikings side, we have watched that same movie on repeat week after week. To be straight with you, this return from JJ is not just about health, it is a personality and mentality test. He comes back from a concussion after a stretch of bad performances, fully aware that the talk about bringing in a veteran to compete for his job is already out there. If he steps on the field tight, scared to make a mistake, the Commanders' defense will smell that and will not let up. The National Football League shows no mercy, especially to a young quarterback. From the perspective of anybody who defends the North every Sunday, what I want to see is a real adjustment from Kevin O'Connell. Simpler concepts to build confidence, well-timed play action, smart use of the run game to take some heat off. None of this long developing concept on 3rd and 8 with a struggling offensive line. The crowd that screams defend the North wants to see a dominant offense again, not this jittery and lost unit. And there is still the other side of this matchup. Washington is coming off a brutal loss. They went for the win on a 2-point try and are sitting on a rough record, but they have started to find some kind of identity. If Jaden Daniels comes back, his mobility at quarterback is exactly the type of thing that tends to stress this defense out. Put together an offense trying to find itself and an opposing defense ready to jump on every JJ mistake, and you have a very dangerous game. Stay locked in because the next story starts to show how this pressure and these bad choices are not just on the field, but also in the decisions being made upstairs. Let me tell you, listening to Kevin O'Connell in this recent interview felt almost like group therapy for anyone who loves this team. He did not dodge anything. He admitted the moment is heavy, that the team has forgotten how to win, and that this losing streak hits him differently this season. He said he got used to seeing this group win, and now the mission is to hold the line without losing what they built culturally. He went hard on that culture point. He said there is no point in praising the locker room only when everyone is smiling with a winning record. It is exactly right now, with the offense stuck and the defense on the field forever, that you find out who people really are. Players who keep studying, practicing hard, and competing even with the schedule stacked against them. Coaches who do not just blame the media or bad luck, and a fan base that keeps supporting even when exhausted. O'Connell also opened up about how each loss hits him. He said he barely gets to enjoy wins because he is already flipping the page to the next game. But the losses bounce around his head all Sunday. He talked about how it hurts to look at the roster, see how much work the guys put in, and still not deliver a game plan that turns into results. Coming from a young head coach still building his name, that carries a lot of weight. You can feel he is not hiding. To be straight with you, I like when a coach owns that responsibility without selling fairy tales. He did not promise a miracle in the home stretch. He did not talk about some magical turnaround. He talked about using these next weeks to show who truly buys into the idea, who is ready to keep rowing even when the boat is taking on water. That is the kind of message that hits deep with the Purple faithful. There was even a lighter moment that showed where his head and heart are. When they asked what superpower he would pick, O'Connell said he would want to be in multiple places at once, half the time with his 4 kids, half the time sneaking into opponents' meeting rooms. It is that human side we forget sometimes. Under the headset, there is a dad, a guy who would also love to be at home more. And when the talk shifted to his dream golf foursome, he said he would want to play alongside Tiger Woods and his 2 sons. You can disagree with his play calling, his game plans, or how he handled the quarterback room. But it is hard to say he is not obsessed with making this work in Minnesota while staying locked in with his family. Drop a comment and tell me if you still trust O'Connell to lead the next chapter of this story. Because at the end of the day, this interview does not erase the season's mistakes. But it does show a head coach who still believes in the project and says they are on the way even in the middle of chaos. And that shines a huge spotlight on another part of the franchise, where the decisions are not about third down play calls. They are about roster building, contracts, and draft picks. That is exactly where the next story hits hard. I will be real with you. This part hurts more because it is not just about what happens on the field. It is about how the team is built. When you look at the drop from a 14-win season to this bitter 4-8 reality, it is pretty clear that some of the decisions upstairs just did not match what the fan base expects. That is not an overreaction. It is simply looking at what was done and what was not. The first big hit is letting Sam Darnold walk. The guy had finally clicked in this system, protected the football better, led an explosive offense with Jefferson, and took this team to the top of the conference conversation. Then the offseason comes, and because of the all-in bet on JJ, the front office only puts a short-term offer on the table while Seattle comes in with a longer commitment. Now Darnold is leading a competitive offense out there, and the Vikings are struggling just to move the chains. The most frustrating part is that nobody was asking for a lifetime marriage with Darnold. It was all about timing. Keep him around a little longer, let JJ grow without carrying the whole world on his shoulders, build a smoother transition. Instead, they pushed all the chips in on a quarterback who had not even put a full National Football League season on tape. That type of risk, when it backfires, explodes in the locker room, on the coaching staff, and of course, all over Vikings Nation. Then comes the second mistake, which feels like the extension of the first. The backup plan behind J.J. McCarthy. The sequence is brutal. Darnold leaves, Daniel Jones moves on, a big-name veteran is floated and never lands. Carson Wentz arrives in scramble mode. Then it becomes Max Brosmer, undrafted, thrown straight into the fire in Seattle. 4 interceptions, 0 points on the board, the defense stuck on the field the whole afternoon again. Honestly, it feels like a script we have watched 3 times already. To be straight with you, there is no way to call this just bad luck. Roster planning is directly on the people who pick, negotiate, and sign contracts. A team with Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, and Darisaw cannot roll into a season with such a fragile quarterback plan. That is how a transition year becomes a wasted year. And then you have the recent draft piece, which is starting to send the bill. The rookie guard is at least giving you something solid, but the rest barely shows up. A high pick has not yet become that pass-rushing terror they advertised. There is an entire class that almost vanished from the roster in no time. When the injuries hit, the depth disappears, and that is when you realize a bunch of those draft swings were more hope than certainty. Only here you get that perspective from an older fan, watching the cycles repeat and feeling that the issue is not just JJ missing throws. It is structure. It is a chain of overly aggressive gambles. It is a roster built without a safety net. And that whole picture sets the stage for one decision that hits everyone right in the heart, because it involves a guy who literally carries this franchise's history on his skin. That is exactly what comes in the next story. There are things you know will happen someday, but when they finally do, they still sting. Seeing Adam Thielen leave Minnesota cuts deep for anybody who watched this guy go from unknown to symbol in purple and gold. And it hurts even more knowing he was the one who asked to take a different path for these final chapters of his career. He had already made it clear this would be his last season in the league. He wanted to finish actually playing, feeling like he still made a difference on the field. The truth here is that it just did not work out that way. Limited usage, barely targeted, a weak connection with J.J. McCarthy. The numbers say everything. Few catches, low yardage, and a role that felt almost like an extra in a team he once helped carry through darker days. When the news broke that he asked for his release, it did not sound like drama. It sounded like a veteran who understands where he is. He saw that his route here was way more about leadership speeches than about the ball actually coming his way, so he decided to go for one last sprint somewhere he could be a real piece in a playoff push. The Steelers, fighting hard in their division, saw the opening and pulled the trigger. There is also a financial angle, but in a different way. Thielen had already reworked his deal, gave up money and bonuses to make it easier to stay in Minnesota. Now that same lighter contract is what makes it easier for another team to claim him. It is almost ironic. He accepts less to keep wearing this jersey, becomes a more attractive target elsewhere, and leaves right when the season sinks into this 4-8 mess. To be straight with you, I cannot even be mad at him. If there is anyone who earned the right to decide how this story ends, it is the guy who came from nowhere, became a Pro Bowler, and always treated this fan base with huge respect. He did not turn his back on the Vikings. He just realized that, on the field, this final chapter was not making sense for him or for the team. His farewell letter confirms it. He calls Minnesota home, says this team is in his blood, and that he will always be a Viking. And we believe him. Vikings Nation believes him too. The memories pull you back to a freezing Sunday, a crisp route, a ridiculous toe tap on the sideline. You remember that feeling of security every time the ball went number 19's way. That does not disappear just because he is going to wear a different helmet for 5 games. In Pittsburgh, he joins a roster battling hard inside a brutal division. He will have the chance to be a trusted target in a stretch that truly decides playoff spots. If he helps push the Steelers over the top, this last act of his career gets a beautiful weight to it. And honestly, if he hauls in a clutch touchdown in a big game, a lot of people in Minnesota are going to smile with that weird mix of pride and sadness. At the end of the day, this exit says a lot about where the Vikings are right now. A franchise icon having to chase a bigger role somewhere else. A season slipping through their hands. Old decisions sending invoices on the field and in the locker room. This picture of a team at a crossroads, stuck between a past that still hurts and a future that has not arrived yet, sparks the most honest conversation about what we want to see from this franchise going forward. There are nights when you just sit back after a day like this and let out a long sigh. Injuries, a rushed return, a game plan that does not click, roster calls that do not add up, and even a franchise icon walking away to chase one last spark somewhere else. All of that happening to the same team in the same season shows just how big this crossroads really is. I still believe this franchise can find itself again, but it will not happen on cruise control. So drop your thoughts in the comments. This space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football. And we are going to face this moment head-on together. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go!